Are you someone who enjoys listening to vocal music? Do you care about clarity, about everything else? If these are the things that you look for in an IEM, let me introduce you to the all new Tangzu Nezha. Hi guys, this is Karan here and I have a very special IEM with me today. So this is the Tangzu Nezha, which is a flagship IEM from Tangzu. Now for those of y'all who don't know a lot about Tangzu, Tangzu is a fairly new brand from China and a bunch of you might know this brand from their budget offering, the Warner SG. Now, they've been making a lot of waves in the audiophile world for that really competitive pricing and high performing IEMs. And now with the Nezha, they offer a flagship grade IEM for you to experience. So how does this IEM sound? What is the driver configuration? How is the build quality? We will talk about all of this in this video. So without further ado, let's talk about the unboxing experience and what you get in the box. So talking about the unboxing experience and what you get in the box. With the Nezha, you get this fairly large package and you get this beautiful artwork that is on the front of this package. Now, as soon as you open the box, you are greeted with the beautiful shells of the Nezha, and along with that, you will find the cable neatly arranged. Now, this cable is a really good cable with a modular design, and you get the 3.5 and 4.4 balance plugs to get you started right out of the box. Now, along with this, you get a fairly large carry case which is made out of leather, and this has a very unique design. What this allows you to do is it allows you to keep the left shell and the right shell separately in the box. Now, I don't know whether this is the most practical way of storing your IEMs, but it is what it is. Now, along with this, you get two sets of ear tips. That's total of 6 pairs. You get the Tangzu Sankai tips, both in the wide bore and the balanced version. I absolutely love these tips, and the entire time that I was using this IEM, I used the wide bore tip, and I think they fit perfectly. They have this nice grip, and that's all that you get in the box. Now, if you were to ask me, this is a fairly well curated package, and I think you get everything that you need to get started right out of the box. So overall, I think this is a great unboxing experience, and everything that you get in the box is just about perfect. Alright, moving on, let's talk about the build quality and the comfort factors on these IEMs. Now, as for the build quality, these are built from resin. The shell feels very robust and it does not feel like it's one of those cheap IEMs. As far as the size of the shells, this is a little bit on the larger side, so people with smaller ears, I think you're gonna have a little bit of difficulty in terms of fit. Alright, so now as for the faceplates, they've got this gorgeous electroplated faceplate with red flecks. I think they absolutely look gorgeous and they have this character and personality to it. Now, in terms of comfort, I really did not have any issues when wearing them. I did not find any hot spots. I got the perfect fit and isolation. So my listening experiences, I really did not have any trouble with the comfort. Now, as I mentioned, if you have smaller ears, I think you want to stay away from this IEM. But overall, I think this is a well-built and well-designed IEM. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate the way that they're designed. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about the most important aspect, and that is how do these IEMs sound. Now, in my listening experience and in the time that I've spent with this IEM, I think they absolutely sound phenomenal. They've got a balanced sound signature with a little bit of emphasis in the mid bass, but overall I think they're fairly well balanced. Now, talking about the frequency regions in brief, I think there is a little bit of a mid bass emphasis, as I mentioned earlier. The mid-range is super syrupy and very engaging, and the treble is well extended with the right amount of smoothness. Now, as far as the driver configuration, I think this is a very unique driver configuration. This one has 6 balanced armature drivers and is paired with one piezoelectric driver for the ultra highs. The frequency response on this is 20 Hz to 20 kHz, which I think is the human hearing range. and the impedance on this is 16 ohms. So these are fairly easy to drive and they pair well with multiple sources. So now having that out of the way, let's talk about each of the frequency regions in detail. Alright, so let's start talking about the low end or the bass presentation on the Tangzu Nezha. So now let me start off by saying that the bass on this may seem a little weak or unauthoritative if you're someone who is a bass head. Now if you're not a bass head, the Nezha presents a well-controlled and textured low-end response. There is a right amount of sub-bass rumble and there is a right amount of mid-bass thump. Now of course the mid-bass thump is a little bit more, and I think I have a working theory for the reason why they've gone for this tuning. Now the low-end notes, usually the fundamental sits in the sub-bass region, but what this IEM highlights is the first harmonic. And when you hear that, I think it has a very good impact for the low-end notes. Now, as I mentioned, the texture and detail of the low end is very well presented on this IEM, and overall the bass response or the bass presentation, I would say, is controlled and textured. Now, the track that I used to test out the low end region for this IEM was a track called Mariscos by Tripper. Now, the Nezha was really able to play the lowest note on this track. Now, of course, there was a little bit less of the sub-bass rumble, but that mid-bass punch and thump was really good to listen to. Moving on, let's talk about the mid-range presentation on these IEMs. Now, let me just begin by saying that the mid-range presentation on this is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there's a word I use to describe the mid-range presentation, and that is what I call syrupy. I mean, it's got this goodness, it's got this thing that wants to make you listen to vocal music or music that has a lot of mid-range presence. Now, having said that, the lower mid-range on this, the way I would like to describe it, I think it has the right amount of note weight and it has the right amount of depth, and it just sounds organic. I mean, male vocals come out with the right amount of tone and timbre, and that is the same case with the upper mid-range as well. Now, in my observation and in my listening experience, I felt that there is a little bit of more prominence in the upper mid-range region, but it really does not sound shouty at all. In fact, I feel there is a linearity and a mature presentation of the upper mid-range. I think the overall sound is just so good. Now, if you were to ask me, what is the kind of mid-range presentation out here, I think, as I mentioned, it's just syrupy goodness out here. Now, if you're someone who enjoys mid-range presentation, you enjoy vocal music or you enjoy listening to guitars or strings, I think there are very few IEMs that compete with the Nezha in terms of the mid-range presentation. So overall, fantastic job done by Tangzu out here. Now, the track that I used to test out the mid-range was Playing God by Polyphia, and my oh my, every single layer of guitar that sits in the mid-range was presented with a lot of clarity, and I absolutely love listening to this track on this IEM. Now, talking about the treble presentation or the top end presentation on the Nezha, I think the first thing that I really noticed was, although it's a all BA and a piezoelectric driver array, it really did not sound metallic or it really did not have that BA timbre. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It has the right amount of smoothness with the right amount of clarity, and every aspect I think is done really well. Now, the lower treble or the presence region I think is absolutely well tuned. You get the right amount of texture, you get the right amount of micro details, and everything is just presented well. All your hi-hat hits, the cymbal hits, they are perfectly well presented. Now, that is the same case with the extension. Now, these have a fairly well extended treble region. I think although the frequency response is up to like 20 kilohertz, I still hear that air that I don't hear in a lot of IEMs. So absolutely well done in terms of the treble tuning. This is not fatiguing, this is not shouty at all. Rather, it's quite the opposite. The track I used to test out the top end presentation on the Nezha is a track called Tessellate by Alt J. Now, for the people who've heard this track, know that there are a lot of finer elements of the drum that sit in the top end, and this IEM was able to present it all quite accurately. Alright, so having discussed the way Nezha sounds, I think let's talk a little bit about the technical capabilities of this IEM. Now, if we talk about the soundstage and the imaging, I think the soundstage out here is absolutely phenomenal. There is a good amount of extension from the left to the right, and there's just the right amount of depth for you to really place instruments and elements in your music. Now, as far as imaging goes, I think because of the BA drivers, I think the instrument placement is just absolutely phenomenal. You can really pinpoint every element, and I think it adds to the listening experience and elevates it quite a bit. Now, in terms of detail retrieval, this thing is an absolute monster. Again, because of the 6 BAs and that piezoelectric driver, I think every single detail in your music is rendered perfectly. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics, and I think this is where the Nezha kind of takes a little bit of a backseat. Now, the dynamics on this is a little bit on the weaker side. The presentation or this particular aspect of the technicality could have been, tuned a little bit better. But anyways, it is what it is. Even with the lower dynamic presentation of this IEM, I still think that this is an absolutely solid IEM. Now let's talk about the resolution on these IEMs. I think these IEMs are absolute monsters when it comes to resolution. And it is all thanks to that 6 BA and 1 piezoelectric driver array. Now you'll hear a lot of macro and micro details with a lot of ease. This IEM really does not slag behind in presenting even the finer nuances in your music. You'll hear the elements in the background, you'll hear the elements in the foreground, and there's not much that gets muddied up. So overall, I think this punches way above its price point, and the technicalities are on point except for that dynamic section. So overall, if you ask me, this IEM is a technical monster and it punches way above its price point, and it even competes with a lot of flagship grade IEMs. Now, the only weak point is that dynamic presentation, but I think a lot of y'all, once you listen to this IEM, will be willing to let go of that particular aspect. Alright, so to summarize my evaluation, I think I absolutely love this IEM. It's just got the right amount of bass, it's got the right kind of mid-range presentation, it has that smooth yet clear treble presentation. I absolutely love the tuning on this, and I think a lot of people who enjoy vocal music, who enjoy mid-range forward music, I think they're absolutely gonna love the Nezha. Now, one thing that I really miss is the dynamic presentation, especially in the low-end region. But that is just me nitpicking out here. Overall, keeping that aspect aside, I think Tangzu has got a winner on their hands, and I'd like to congratulate them for developing such an awesome IEM. So that was it from my side. If you'd like to try the Tangzu Nezha for yourself, I invite you here to our experience studio in Mumbai. And if you're not from Mumbai, you can catch us at a Headphone Connect or a community event happening at a city near you. So that's it. I'll see you in the next one.